Aloha. I'm Barbara Marumoto, representative in the House of Representatives. And today we're taping a portion of Better Government. So we want to introduce you to some of the people who work in the Capitol and their functions. And there's some really bright, young, hardworking people here. And first and foremost among them is Beth Fukumoto. Welcome, Beth.
Thank you.
Now, Beth heads the House Minority Office, the House Republican Office in the House of Representatives. Now, I don't quite know her title, but is it Chief?
Director.
Director
Yes.
of the House Minority Research and Legal Office?
Yep, we do legal, we do communications, we do research, everything.
Well, this is a small office. How many people do you have in there full-time?
Full-time we have 7 people full-time. But during session we have more because we have session staff, so we had about 10 this year.
Okay. Maybe I'll ask you to tell me who the full-timers are.
Okay, so we have our attorney, we have an attorney, and then we have a finance analyst who actually happens to also be an attorney. We have another position for another analyst, legislative analyst. We have a communications director, and then we have an office manager.
I see. Okay. And then for the session, you bring on staff, which is from the third Wednesday in January until the early May.
Yes.
So how many people do you get for these particular jobs?
This year we were able to hire 3 more people besides the permanent staff. And that's because once committees start up in the legislature and all the representatives are going to committees, and we need to track those bills. We get something like 2,000 bills every year, so we have to read all those bills and we need extra help at that time. Yeah.
There's a lot more work going on then. So there's a Senate Minority Office, and then there might also be a Senate Majority Office,
Yes.
which is the Democrat office, and then the House Majority Office. And I don't know how many people are in the House Majority Office, but would you happen to know?
Probably about 20 or 25 even.
So it would be much larger.
Yes, much larger.
Perhaps you could describe to me the functions of your office, like pre-session, what would you be doing?
Well, what we did, especially right before session, is we're working on putting together the package. And that's the legislative package for the Republican representatives. So
and that means the bills that we will be introducing.
Right. So the bills that you guys introduce as a caucus, and then the bills that individual members introduce, we also research. And that involves researching, talking to the different departments. It involves doing legal checks on everything to make sure we're actually following the law and not eliminating important things. And then we actually draft the bills.
So mainly it's your attorney that would be doing the drafting, and you could also send it out to other agencies for drafting.
Yes. And I actually got to draft. I'm not an attorney. I got to draft a bill this year, and it actually happened to pass, which was very exciting. So that was fun. That was my first bill.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Which one was that?
This was allowing military personnel to get college credit if they go to UH. They get college credit for certain military experiences.
Oh, that's really wonderful. I don't even remember that one.
Nope, it's sailed by really quickly. It was
Under
nice.
the radar.
It was one of Representative Johansson's ideas.
Johansson's? Oh, Johansson's.
Yes.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that. So besides researching and drafting, you have the different representatives submit the bills. Is that correct? And then there's also a caucus package. Now, would you like to describe that particular package?
Sure. This year we tried to include all sorts of things, but we tried to focus specifically on the economy. So we're looking at things that could create jobs, looking at things. One of the things was to keep the unemployment insurance at the same rate as it is right now instead of increasing. And we actually saw that bill. You guys voted on that bill, and it passed just in a different version than the one that we put in, but we put in a similar bill.
Oh, that was very important to
biggest successes,
businesses, because they pay that premium on each employee, and it would have gone over $1,000 per employee.
That's right.
So thank you for doing that. And And then we introduce about 10 bills apiece. And we're restricted to that number. And it's always kind of been a sore point with me because we're restricted to about 10 bills, but the majority can introduce 10 bills for themselves plus 10 for their committee. They can also put in, chairman could put in short form bills, which are maybe have general titles, but they could pack anything into it later on that fits in that category. They could also gut and replace. And so, you know, maybe you would like to explain what gut and replace means?
Sure. We actually saw a lot of gut and replace this year, which is basically when a certain bill comes in a particular format, and then the committee chair or somebody doesn't like the contents of that bill, so they'll gut it, they'll take everything out, and they'll replace it with a bill that they do like. So we saw it a lot this year because it seemed like the House and the Senate weren't getting along that great. So the Senate would kill one of the House's bills, or they wouldn't pass it on the Senate side, and so one of the House chairs would just stick it right back into one of the Senate bills, and it was interesting. It's an interesting process.
Well, the chairmen have that kind of control and latitude, which minority members do not do.
Right.
So it gives them a lot more leeway in which to introduce bills or promote their ideas, keep their ideas alive. Whereas it seems to me a lot of minority bills get heard and then they don't advance much farther than that. It's hard to get a bill passed. It happens, like you said, the military bill, but I've seen the gut and replace is usually done with a bill from the other house, but I've seen it done from a previous committee too.
Oh, interesting.
From one house bill to one house committee to another house committee. So once session starts, it gets a little frantic, and there's thousands of bills.
Yes.
Maybe 2,000 per house.
Yeah.
Or total.
Probably about 2,000 per house.
And so the chairmen get to pick and choose what bills they'd like to hear.
Right.
Now, what do you do with these particular bills? How do you structure your people or deploy your people to deal with these bills?
Well, one of the first things that I think is so great about the Republican caucus is our members, like yourself, are so good at using the public to try to help push your ideas. You talk to the public, you try to get them involved, which is something that we don't see the Democrats do quite as often, because we need the public on our side to be able to pass stuff. So things like your tree snake bill, the snakes and other bills, we got moving because the public wanted it. So that's the first thing we do, is we help try to rally the public, write letters, that sort of thing, grassroots stuff. And then once the bills get a hearing, or if they don't, but we send all of our staff to cover each individual hearing. So we have somebody sitting in every committee to make sure that we let our representatives know, mainly so that they have a backup. If our representatives have a question or anything, they can ask us and we can research things quickly.
So when you get the hearing notice and you see which bills are going to be heard, you have one of your researchers analyze each bill? Is that it?
Yes. So as soon as the hearing notice comes out, and that means the chair has decided that they're going to hear a bill, we have our office will go through, we'll read each bill, we'll try to look up some previous testimony if there is any, and determine whether or not it's in line with what we think our members agree with or disagree with, and then we'll give it a grade. So between A through F. We don't see a lot of Fs and we don't see a lot of As. They tend to be somewhere in the middle. And
so
then
it's
we'll
an
grade
indication for us whether you think it's a good bill or one that raises taxes or might be costly. So this is the bills that come into the committee that's going to be heard. So we have certain members of our caucus sitting on that committee, so they could use this indication whether it's a good bill or not. Now let's say the bill dies, so it just doesn't go any farther. Some bills advance out of committee, and then we have to vote on them on second reading. Do you analyze the bills before that time?
Yes, as soon as they come out of committee, we start writing longer reports. So our initial analysis is maybe a paragraph or two long, And we get longer reports, maybe about 2 pages on each bill, so that the representatives will have a really clear picture of what happened in committee. Because not every representative, there are 26 committees, something like 20-something committees, and not every representative can go to all. So we try to recap everything.
Do you try and cover every committee and
Yes.
every bill?
Yes. Yes.
That is a lot of work.
It is. And we've tried to sift them out, and it just, you know, that it's hard to say what's going to become a big deal later, and sometimes it's just hard to determine it. Yeah. We've been trying to figure out how to sift them out easier, though.
Well, what's frustrating to me is there's so much information, so much work that's put into these bills, and sometimes we get out of a committee, we have to go down to the floor to vote on second reading, and we may have 5 minutes in which to glance through the digest. We can't really absorb it all or read it all, and we're expected to vote on them. So we miss things, and we try and catch them later on. But it's always good for representatives to be able to flag something to say that there may be a problem with this particular bill or this procedure. Legislation is a great deal of education, and if we could educate other members of the committee, other members on the floor about the good points of a bill or the bad points, then I think it makes for better legislation as a whole. And so it sounds like it's a lot of work. And so when it comes out for third reading, out of another committee for third reading, do you folks do another analysis at that time?
Yeah, that's usually the final analysis, and we actually normally have, because of the legislative deadlines, we have a little bit more time. Often on second reading, we're seeing the bill that night to produce a report for the next day. On third reading, we have about 48 hours.
At least 48 hours.
At least 48 hours to decide and to read through everything. So that's when probably the best reports come out, and when the representatives also have the most time to read them. So.
Well, you say that you have enough time, but on the other hand, I see you folks working all night sometimes.
Yes, that's true. Sometimes I do think there is not enough time. We just need more bodies. Yeah.
I think you folks do an excellent job.
Thank you.
And I feel really bad that we don't read every single word because we catch things later on. But you try and get it ready for us to caucus the day before. We go through each bill on the agenda, and the agenda could be 25 pages long with how many, half dozen bills a page?
Yeah.
Maybe 10 bills a page.
Yeah.
So we're going through a lot of bills, and a lot of them are very intricate and complicated. So I give you people credit. There were some interesting bills this year, and I'm wondering whether you could remember, point out some interesting ones. In my estimation, I felt that there was several large projects the governor was pushing and the majority leadership in the House, and it seemed to be a wholesale assault on the environmental system, on the permitting and historic preservation laws, on zoning, and a lot of county restrictions. Would you agree with that particular take?
Yeah, one of the big bills that came right into the very end, I thought it was going to pass, was the one to allow transient-oriented developments, which would have allowed anything around a bus station or maybe even a bus stop or a train station to go without public hearing and not go through the regular permitting processes. I'm from Mililani, and we have all sorts of development going on right now. We had a large tower that they tried to put up, and then there's another really big development that could cause a lot of traffic. Whether people are for or against those, I think most people would agree that we definitely should not take the public out of that equation. And development, whether you're for it or against it, it's going to affect the people around in the community. So I think cutting the community out was a big mistake, and that was something that we saw a lot of, I thought, this year. In environmental review, permitting, broadband, everything, we were just cutting out the community. I thought that was a bad thing.
Yeah. Also, the underwater cable
Yes.
project would have come under that category.
Yes.
But I was particularly concerned about a 650-foot tower in Kaka'ako, and the city height limit is 450 feet.
Right.
So this would have exceeded it Oh, 400 feet, so it would have exceeded it by 250 feet. So I thought, well, you know, we could mandate it, but, you know, this is really a city
Right.
Jurisdiction. The zoning, the height, the density laws. So we could run roughshod over it, but I was really concerned about that. Any other particular bills of interest to you this year?
I think the other one was to allow state departments to appeal the Office of Information Practices rulings. So if the Office of Information Practices says that a member of the public is allowed a certain piece of information, our state departments, Department of Transportation, anybody, Attorney General's office can come in and they can appeal that ruling and take that individual to court to say, no, you can't have this information. I just think government should not be getting in the way of that. I thought that was really bad.
I would agree with you. I really thought the Office of Information should be the court of last resort. That's the way the bill was designed to be. And so for openness, you know, for people who want information from the departments, I think OIP should have been the arbiter. Well, thank you for your analysis of that. You know, we have a lot of floor presentations, and we have certificates and resolutions. Would you like to describe that particular procedure?
Sure. I mean, at the beginning of, people can get certificates from the legislature throughout the year, but during session we have a special floor presentation where where each representative has to sign up ahead of time, and they usually pick somebody from their community or somebody in the larger state community that they feel like has done a particularly exemplary thing. And we'll help draft sometimes those certificates, and you look for information about the organization or the individual. And then the group gets to come and sit on the floor of the House, and the representatives make speeches about them. It's a good community awareness thing, but it's also just nice to honor the people in our community that have done good things.
I think it's outstanding to recognize good work, and the House allows each representative one person, one floor presentation, and they asked that it be of statewide significance, but sometimes it is a basketball team winning a championship. On the other hand, it used to be when we had unlimited floor presentations. That was quite time-consuming. So they clamped down to where it was one a year, which may be a little tight. I noticed that the Senate still has unlimited presentations, and they deal with them a little more expeditiously than we do. But it's good to be able to recognize these good folks. So they're not really legislation, it's just a nice proclamation recognizing their work. And I would tell folks that they could ask their representative or senator for a certificate for somebody who's retiring, for somebody who's having a 100th birthday, somebody who's a basketball team, someone who's won an award and who's done something significant. So your office drafts those certificates also?
Yes, it's a good way to learn a lot about the community, actually, because you do a lot of research about individuals.
That's right. I know Representative Ching had one to recognize the 100th anniversary of several organizations in her Liliha community, and it was Shingon Temple and Palama Settlement, and maybe even a third one. I can't remember
what it was.
But that was a particular point of view which I don't think would have been recognized unless she had brought it out, that there was these organizations that have been in her community for 100 years. So that's really wonderful. It wouldn't happen in your district because you're from Mililani, I know. And Mililani's, you're fairly new. That's terrific. So you are from Mililani. Did you go to school there?
I did. Well, I went to Hanalani, which is located in Mililani. And my sister graduated from Mililani High School.
Oh, I see.
So I went to lots of Mililani softball games.
Oh, I see. Well, that's terrific. And you've been working in the legislature how long?
This is my third year. I worked for my office. Actually, initially, it's a great story because I initially just came here to file things because I couldn't find a job in 2008. I graduated with a master's degree and I couldn't find a job. So I came here and I filed things. And positions just kept opening while I was here. And 3 years later, I'm the director, and it's been a really interesting ride. It's very exciting.
So you filed things for whom?
A Minority Research Office.
Oh.
I would come in twice a week and I would just file the bills in folders and listen to the analysts talk about the bills and what was going on, and I just sat there filing things in folders.
That's going to really encourage the young people to get involved.
Yeah, it should encourage people. Yeah.
So I think they should volunteer for in different people's offices.
Yes, yes.
And I started out in research myself as a part-timer, maybe just in a few hours in the morning. And I had children getting out of nursery school at noon. And then I worked a whole session as a staffer, and then I guess I got a job in full-time, finally. And I also worked in the research office in the Senate as a researcher, so I did some serious work there. And then I ran for the Constitutional Convention. After that, I ran for the House because there just happened to be an opening that opened up. So a lot of people do start out as staff. And half the legislature used to be staff.
Seems like it, yeah.
So that may be a good way to know whether you could do the work, whether you'd like the work. So I encourage all the young people to come on down.
Yes.
It would be really good. Now, you're engaged.
I am, yes.
To whom?
To David Chang. He's a local businessman.
Oh, I think I've heard of him, yes. He's the chairman of some party in town. So, I want to talk about the caucus a little bit.
Okay.
We have 8 Republicans in the House out of 55 members.
That's right.
And when we are in session, you're right down there with us. And when we go off the floor to caucus, we're in one of the side rooms. The Democrats have one in which they have, 43 people in their room. We have one the same size with 8 people rattling around inside. But you're in there, the attorney's in there, and maybe 1 or 2 others. So you are right there to advise legislators on certain bills.
Yes.
So we could ask you advice. Well, how did I vote on this last time?
Yes.
And you always seem to have those answers.
It's always the most interesting. Well, the new iPhone is great because I can look things up right on my iPhone. But it's always, that's probably the most exciting part is caucus, because it's when you're actually up close and you're personal with the legislators, you're seeing the decision-making process. For every new staffer that I've had that has been able to come to caucus, they've been so excited. They're excited to come and they're excited to come back. They just love it because it's so interesting and the interaction is interesting.
And then we give speeches on the floor, but sometimes you folks write them.
That's right. We do write the speeches, and I have to say, we discussed this year that we would like to be able to call point of order ourselves from the side, sort of like referees or something, because we get so involved in the action on the floor because we've sometimes written the speeches and we've talked about the bills. We get so excited, we want to be able to jump up and help you guys when we need to, but we just have to be quiet on the side.
Can you text us?
Yes, sometimes we do.
That's very interesting. So you folks really are our brains, I think. Sometimes we get so busy with the ribbon cutting and attending, this graduation, that testimonial dinner, and you folks are the ones that stay in the Capitol late at night, writing and reading and studying the bills. Not that we don't read all the bills, most of them, but I call the research office our brains, and I think I did a lot of work when I was staff also. But I do enjoy the judgment calls, because as legislators, we're able to vote up or down. We decide. You give us the information, but then we decide after talking to different people. We're the ones who get lobbied, and so, we're the decision makers. but we rely very heavily on you, and I'm sure it's the same for the majority side also.
Yes. Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. So, you know, are there any advice that you would give to us legislators?
I would say just keep talking to your communities. That's what I respect most about all of you, is you know your communities really, really well. And sometimes the best ideas come directly from people, just somebody that saw something happen across the street and thinks there's something we should do about it. And that's what I really admire about the Republicans in particular, because they no idea is ever too small, and those ideas turn into things. They turn into bills and laws.
I get lobbied mostly in the supermarket.
Yes.
I can't go, you know, 10 steps without somebody catching me on each aisle, but once I get my ice cream, I don't stop for anybody. So that's the last thing I do. And I really enjoy working with the community, and I've done it for a long time. This is my last term in office, in the House anyway, and so I really appreciate the support I've gotten from your office.
Thank you. Thank you. We're going to miss you a lot.
That's okay. I'll be around to bug you. I'm
Okay,
pretty
good.
sure I will.
Good.
And we got to think of lots of new legislation for next year,
Yes.
and
Yes.
set that up before we
Yes.
depart. But I will be here until Election Day. I will be in my office until November 5th, or answering phone calls. So I will be bothering you until then.
Okay. Okay. And afterwards too. Fine.
Okay, super.
Yes.
Well, I want to thank all of you for watching Better Government. And with your help and with your lobbying and your stopping me in the supermarket and other folks at the gas station or wherever, we will definitely get better ideas and more input from the public. So I wish you aloha and good luck, and here's to better government.